Imagine Rome, not the postcard of shattered columns and tourists with cameras, but Rome as it once was, colossal, alive, a city that breathed power. Streets thrummed with carts and proclamations, temples shimmered, emperors sat in marbled halls, and their words bent the lives of millions. Legions marched outward like a steel tide. The known world orbited on Rome's command. Yet even at its height, that beating heart hid hairline cracks. The end did not arrive overnight. It unfolded like corrosion, slow, relentless. To understand why a world power unraveled, we must begin precisely where pride sits highest, at Rome's peak. The Age of Mastery, how Rome looked at its prime. In the 1st century AD, the empire seemed invincible. Under Augustus, Trajan, Vespasian, Rome was a machine that organized land, law, and people with extraordinary efficiency. Roads stitched provinces together. Aqueducts delivered cities clean water. Trade arteries fed markets from Alexandria to Londinium. Law and language created a shared identity across continents. The numbers were staggering. The empire spread across nearly 5 million square kilometers. 60 million souls, 1 in 4 human beings, lived under Roman rule. The Pax Romana bought 2 centuries of relative calm. The legions kept peace, and civic life prospered. On the surface, everything worked. But empires are organisms. They breathe. They must intake resources and exhale order. Rome's appetite was colossal, and it ran on a simple, dangerous premise: conquest as resource supply. Territory fed the state: men, slaves, taxes, tribute. Conquest replenished Rome's economic oxygen. 2. The great problem: an empire too wide to feed itself. Conquest can be a growth engine until it is not. As Rome stopped expanding with the same ferocity of earlier centuries, the inflow of wealth slowed. No new lands meant no new tribute, no fresh plunder, fewer slaves to till latifundia. The economy that had been turbocharged by conquest now faced stagnation. Rome's fiscal model depended on continuous intake. Public spectacles, massive building works, garrisons along thousands of kilometers of border. They all needed money. When tax receipts lagged, Rome reacted with familiar but fatal measures: raise taxes, squeeze smallholders, and debase the currency. Debasement was a slow poison. Silver coins lost purity. The state minted more copper, less silver, and inflation followed like a shadow. Bread and grain, basic staples, rose in price. The small landowners and artisans bore the brunt. Many abandoned farms. The countryside emptied. Those who remained became clients of powerful landlords who could shield them from bandits, tax collectors, and chaos. This shift, peasants entering protective dependence on great landholders, is where the long-term seed of medieval serfdom takes root. Not overnight, but as a social evolution triggered by economic collapse, an invisible transformation from Roman citizen farmer to dependent laborer. 3. Political poison: civil war, short reigns, and military rule. Economy strained, politics convulsed. From 235 AD, the empire fell into what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. Emperors rose and fell like flashing banners. Military uprisings, assassinations, usurpations. In fewer than 50 years, scores of claimants vied for the purple. Many were generals proclaimed emperor by their legions. This was not merely political instability. The legions no longer looked to Rome for identity. Soldiers fought for pay and for the commander who rewarded them. Military loyalty shifted from abstract loyalty to direct patronage. Armies became kingmakers. Campaigns were increasingly civil. Armies fought armies. Borders thinned. Provinces withdrew into self-protection. The empire's administrative nerve center started to fracture. A single command could no longer instantly implement policy across territories. Local power brokers rose. Authority fragmented like cracked ceramic. The state still existed, but its moral and administrative coherence eroded.
Faced with broad collapse, Diocletian enacted an audacious solution in 285 AD: divide the empire. The Tetrarchy split authority among two senior rulers, Augusti, and two juniors, Caesars. It was administrative realpolitik, make governance smaller, quicker, and local. The immediate aim worked. Crises were contained faster, bureaucracies reformed, taxation was systematized. But the split baked a structural inequality. The eastern provinces, with richer cities and trade routes, enjoyed greater resilience. The western provinces, drifting into fiscal starvation, lacked the same economic base. Capitals moved. Milan and then Ravenna became centers for the West. Meanwhile, the East's new capital, later Constantinople, grew into a fortress of wealth and trade. Administration drifted apart. Two Romes emerged, one vibrant and wealthy, the other reduced and exposed. The cleavage would not repair itself. Who were the barbarians? The word barbarian was Roman shorthand, a linguistic broom sweeping many peoples under an exotic label. But the peoples beyond Rome's idealized world were far from a single primitive mass. Goths, Vandals, Franks, Saxons, Alemanni, each had their own social structure, culture, and political ambitions. Some were settler groups, some were confederations, some were nomads. Many of these groups had long been in Rome's orbit. Rome recruited them as foederati, allied troops settled on imperial land in return for military service. They served as frontier bulwarks, police for insecure provinces, even as core contingents of the field army. Their leaders were sometimes integrated into imperial command structures. Integration worked until it did not. Two catastrophic dynamics pushed them from ally to adversary. First, Roman neglect and abuse. Agreements were broken, rations withheld, promises unkept. Second, external pressure. Nowhere was this clearer than in the sweep of the Huns from the Eurasian steppes. The arrival of the Huns catalyzed a European demographic convulsion. The steppe riders, swift, mobile, fearsome, pushed Germanic groups westward. Entire populations fled, families, herds, and martial bands. These were not raids, but migrations, nations on the move in search of security and land. The Visigoths pressed toward Roman borders. Vandals and Suebi moved across Gaul and Hispania. Some sought peaceful settlement, others wanted plunder or autonomy. Rome's barrier, the thin line of frontier defense, strained to hold such surging populations. What made it disastrous for Rome was not only the sheer numbers, but a deeper failure of trust. Foedera, formal agreements of settlement, were easily breached by corrupt officials on the ground. Refugees became exploited laborers, then mutinous bands. A poisoned diplomacy turned desperate guests into invaders. Adrianople, a defining rupture. In 378 AD, a defining rupture occurred, the Battle of Adrianople. The Visigoths, initially allowed as refugees, had been badly treated and manipulated by Roman authorities. They revolted. Emperor Valens led his forces into battle, confident but misled about the enemy's strength. The result was catastrophic. An army annihilated, the emperor killed, Roman prestige broken. Adrianople was more than a battlefield loss. It was symbolic proof that Rome could no longer guarantee victory by default. The legions were mortal, and barbarian forces could now break imperial armies in the field. Attila, the scourge, rides west. As if the Gothic threat were not enough, a new terror gathered in the east, Attila the Hun. Under his leadership, the Huns were transformed from a roving confederation into a disciplined juggernaut. Quick cavalry, composite bows, and ruthlessness made them a force Rome had not faced. Attila's campaigns brought the empire to its knees in multiple directions. He tortured the Danube frontier and extorted massive tributes. In 451, he struck into Gaul. In 452, he invaded Italy itself. Cities fell. The psychological blow was immense. When Attila finally withdrew after a meeting with Pope Leo I, details murky, diplomacy, bribe, or plague, the empire breathed briefly. The terror, however, had exposed Rome's vulnerability. The sacking of Rome in 410 and 455, lost myth and lost treasure. Even more devastating than foreign ferocity was the revelation that Rome's myth of invincibility had cracks. In 410 AD, the Visigoth king Alaric entered Rome. He had once served Rome and sought a place within it. The empire's failures and insults pushed him to take the city. For 3 days, Rome was sacked, temples plundered, wealth carted away. The effect was psychological. The eternal city, long thought unassailable, was breached. 45 years later, the Vandals, under Genseric, launched a meticulous maritime strike. In 455, they looted Rome with surgical efficiency, treasures, relics, and hostages taken. These sackings didn't just empty vaults, they hollowed the idea of Rome as eternal. The end of an era, Romulus Augustus and Odoacer. The formal end came without cinematic finality. In 476 AD, the boy emperor, Romulus Augustus, a name heavy with irony, was deposed by Odoacer, a Germanic commander who had had enough of hollow court politics and unpaid troops. Odoacer sent the imperial insignia to Constantinople and ruled Italy in the emperor's stead. The Western Empire's administrative structures collapsed. No new Western emperor would rise. Power shifted. Continuity transformed into local kingdoms. But the story did not conclude in annihilation. Roman law, languages, urban forms, Christianity, and culture persisted and evolved. The East lived on as Byzantium for another millennium, yet for the West, the political scaffold had been dismantled.
The fall of Rome is not a single image of ruin. It is a complex dissolution, a transformation. From that decay sprouted new orders. Part 2 traces the consequences, the cultural recycling, the political metamorphoses, and the centuries-long aftershock that shaped medieval Europe. After the siege, social disintegration and local power. Cities emptied, long-distance trade receded. The great villas and estates suffered. Administrative capacity shrank, and local elites, barbarian or Roman, filled the vacuum. In large measure, the story of early medieval Europe is the story of provincial elites adapting Roman forms to new social realities. In the countryside, peasants moved into client relationships with strongmen. This was not uniform feudalism overnight. It was a spectrum of dependency, local bargains made for security. The crop surplus that once fed imperial bureaucrats now fed local lords who could field their own retinues. The church as continuity, clergy, law, and learning.
One major instrument of continuity was the Christian Church. While administrative coordination disintegrated, bishops and monastic institutions preserved records, law, and literacy. Cathedrals replaced basilicas. Monasteries copied manuscripts. The Church became an intermediary between the Roman past and a fragmented future. The Church also inherited and adapted Roman administrative routines, archives, legal concepts, and charity networks. In many ways, the bishop was the successor to the Roman municipal magistrate, the custodian of civic identity in a time of political collapse. IV. Germanic kings and Roman forms. Conquerors like the Ostrogoths, Visigoths, and later the Franks adopted Roman titles and legal frameworks. Kings used Roman administrative practices to govern a majority Roman population. The result was a hybrid political reality, Germanic elites ruling by Roman law, yet reshaping it to suit new social relations. Clovis, king of the Franks, converted to Christianity and blended Roman legal forms with Germanic custom. This synthesis permitted localized rule while preserving many Roman legalities. By the time of Charlemagne, new political projects sought to reweave Roman symbolism into European order. IV. Economic rebasing. Local economies and the slow return of trade. Trade did not vanish, it reoriented. Coastal and long-distance commerce became riskier, but local markets and regional commerce filled the gap. Coins remained important instruments, but often became localized. Over time, as political stability increased in certain regions, trade networks reopened. The Mediterranean trade resumed, though under different actors and forms.
Rome never fully died in cultural imagination. Centuries later, medieval kings modeled themselves after Roman emperors, and Renaissance humanists invoked classical Rome as a source of authority and beauty. The legal heritage of Rome, codified under Justinian in the East, reintroduced Roman law to Western Europe when contact resumed. Latin persisted through liturgy, law, and scholarship as the lingua franca of learned Europe. Rome's legacy, paradoxically, is both a warning and a resource. It warns that power without sustainable institutions devolves into brittle dominance. It shows that cultural institutions, law, language, and religion can outlast political collapse and rebuild continuity from the ruins. When the Vandals sailed, and when Romulus Augustulus stepped down, the Western political order changed, but Rome's imprint stayed. Columns turned into cathedrals, Latin evolved into Romance tongues, law books were recopied by candlelight. The world that rose from Rome's ashes would find stability in forms both new and ancient. History refuses tidy endings. Rome's fall is both a death and a slow transformation. The story matters because the fragments of Rome shaped medieval and modern Europe. Institutions, legal concepts, languages, and the very idea of empire. To study Rome's fall is to learn how great systems can decay and how what's left can still shape centuries.